Are you familiar with the difference between the poet and the engineer? If not, I need you to watch this video. I think it will help you flourish in a lot of areas in your life. I'm in Paris, and there's so much beautiful architecture, so many beautiful buildings here, man. Like, it's just breathtaking the way they've designed the city. It's really a blessing to be here. When I was in seminary, one of my professors, he talked to us about the difference between the poet and the engineer, and he was using the life of David as an example. King David, who was a poet, who was a soldier, who was a warrior, but he talked about how even in his strength, in his heart, David was a poet, and David had developed like this heart to love God, this desire within him to just capture the beauty and the wonder of God and of life, and to commune with God, to be close to God, to have this just intimacy with God, his maker. He taught us that in order to tell us about the difference. His name was Van Gameren, Professor Van Gameren, that was his name. To teach us the difference between the poet and the engineer. The engineer is someone who builds beautiful things, who designs, who constructs buildings and bridges and designs like all kinds of things, man. The poet is not someone who necessarily builds, but someone who has an interior life, a heart, a purity about him or herself that is deeply and intimately connected to God. In life, there are a lot of people who are engineers, but who lack any poet within them. They've neglected to develop the poet that's within them. And in life, there are a lot of people who are public performers. There are a lot of people who want to look good on the stage. They want to look good in the pulpit. They want to look good on the job. And so they put on this persona, this character, and they pretend to be something they're not. But when no one's looking and they take the mask off in private, they're a completely different person. They've completely neglected to develop the poet within them. I wanted to encourage you to think about yourself and your own life with regard to the poet and the engineer. How's your interior life? How's your prayer life? How's your quiet time? How are your spiritual disciplines? What are you doing to make sure you're connected to God? What are you doing to make sure you're staying connected to the vine? What are you doing to make sure that your heart and soul is replenished? What are you doing? Are you just performing? Are you just going through life fronting, putting on this persona, this character, in order to get people to like you, in order to get ahead? But it's not who you are, because at the end of the day, man, your happiness is not going to be based on your public performance. It's going to be based on ultimately who you are when you're by yourself, when you're alone, in the quiet of your own heart, when you're looking in the mirror. Who are you? And are you happy with that person? Is that person connected to God? Is that person connected to the Lord? Is that person flourishing? Does that person have a peace that surpasses all understanding? Does that person have joy? Do you have joy? Do you have a peace that surpasses all understanding? Do you look out at the world, man, and see the beauty and the wonder that's around you? Do you see the miracles that are around you? Do you see the art that is around you, the beauty of God's creation? Do you see it? Do you notice it? Or are you busy just chasing money? Are you busy just trying to figure out how to get ahead? And you're even taking advantage of people, and you're lying on people, and you're petty, and you're mean, and you're selfish. Man, like, in the end, it's not worth it. Alice and I are an open book. We're from LA, and we're just real down to earth, man, real chill, laid back people. A lot of times when we've moved to different places, whether it was Chicago or especially here in the South, people are sometimes put off by how open we are, and they think that we're being phony, or they think that this is not who we really are. They think that we're fronting. I think because they're so used to people being phony around them. There's so many phony people, man, in Atlanta, in Chicago, even in LA. There's phony people in New York. There's phony people everywhere. And I think people are so used to phony people that when someone who's real and authentic comes around, they don't even know how to handle us. They don't even know how to treat like people with pure hearts who just want to do good and be a blessing to others. right? And so what happens is they're kind of shady and petty and do all kind of manipulative stuff and talk behind your back, and it gets back to you. And it's unfortunate, man, because they're missing out on getting to know some pretty cool people. And I've seen it happen to my wife so many times. She's such a sweetheart, such a pure heart. But so many people think that she cannot be that nice for real. She cannot be that sweet for real, and they think she's acting or phony or whatever. And so they keep their distance from her. It's really sad, but it's their loss, and it really reveals more of who they are than anything about Alice and us. But that's the difference between the poet and the engineer, man. The poet has a purity in your heart, an integrity about you. I think it's 1 Samuel 16. Man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. A lot of people are living only to look a certain way, to be perceived a certain way. But how's your heart? How's your heart? How's your heart? Because that really matters. And if your heart isn't right, you need to start there, man. Ask the Lord to forgive you. You need to repent of whatever it is that you've been doing that has caused harm to yourself and to others. And repent for being a performer. Repent for being fake. Repent for being only an engineer without any regard for your poet, without any regard for someone who's communing with God, that's developing an intimacy with God. That's my word for today. The engineer and the poet. What can you do to develop the poet? You can spend some time in the morning, starting your day off in prayer, reading your word. You can start your day off meditating and sitting in silence and just thinking about what you're grateful for. Who do you love? Who loves you? Things you can do, man, to develop the poet in you, to express your gratitude to people around you and tell them what you appreciate about them, to sit in silence sometimes in nature and just look at the beauty of God's creation. Little things you can do to just develop the poet. Little things. When you feel tempted to present yourself as something other than who you are, as inauthentic, stop yourself, man. Stop yourself and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Who am I trying to impress? And why? Why am I working so hard for this person's approval? Why am I working so hard to be liked by people who could not care less about me? Ask yourself, why am I so preoccupied with being liked by these other people? And do I like myself? And if not, it's because you haven't developed the poet within yourself. All right? So I just want to encourage you, develop the poet, man. See the beauty of life. Notice the little things. A child smiling, playing in the park, a baby's laughter. Man, just seeing a family sitting together, loving one another. To see like old couples holding hands and sitting alone, just staring at each other. Man, the little things, man, like a beautiful flower blowing in the wind. You know, just develop the poet in you. And not to say you shouldn't work at being great and strong at building things like the engineer, but so many people are so focused on being the engineer, the performer, the outward person, while neglecting the interior life. And I don't want you to do that. You won't flourish because you flourish from the inside out. And if you're working from the outside in, it's you're missing something. All right, if this has helped you, like it, subscribe, share, look around on the channel for some other videos. And hopefully it'll add some more value to your life. All right, I'm your friend, Dr. Manny Scott, coming to you from beautiful Paris, France. Have an amazing day. I'll check in with you soon.